So the Avata 1 versus the Avata 2, what are the major differences and what can you expect upgrading from the Avata 1 to the Avata 2? That's what we're gonna be talking about today, so stay tuned. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my channel. This is Eddie, aka Mr. Eddie Nunez. Here with me today, I have the Avata 1 at the bottom and the Avata 2 on top. Yeah, that's the relationship that they have, bottom and top. It's yellow here because these are the original Dobo rib riders, something that was extremely successful for the Avata 1. I'm sure we'll need this for the Avata 2. We'll get to that in a second. And we're going to be covering today what are my key takeaways and differences comparing both of these Avatas. I'm going to go ahead and read the phone here because I want to make sure that I give you up front everything that I'm going to be discussing with you today. So it's going to be two main points. First, we're going to discuss major hardware differences. Secondly, we're going to be discussing my experience. In terms of hardware, we're going to be talking about the all-new design, the size, the new goggles, remote batteries, and of course the camera. And in terms of my experiences, we're going to be talking about the loudness of both drones, the battery life, the signal penetration, and what it has been like flying the Avata 2 with the new goggles, the Goggles 3. So let's jump right into it. So let's first start with hardware. As I mentioned, what has changed? Well, everything has changed from the Avata 1 to the Avata 2. Looking at the drones here, since I do have them side by side in hand, the airframe completely changed, the build quality completely changed, the construction, I even think even the materials that they use has completely changed. One big noticeable difference is now that the batteries is no longer the same, obviously, but the way that you install the batteries are completely different. This has that sort of traditional Mavic style, or even mini style, right? The Air 3, the Mavic 3, the Mini 4 Pro, where it inserts all the way in. It gives you that LED at the back as well. Camera, completely different, and motors as well. The motors on the Avata 2 are slightly larger, but also the propellers now are these tri-blades versus the fan blades, which overall gives it a quieter pitch noise, and it is less noticeable compared to the Avata 1. So now goggles have changed as well. Here to my left, to your right, we have the Goggles 2. I've never owned the Goggles Integra or even the later goggles that they released. And then here is the all-new Goggles 3. And if you look at them together side by side, they're gonna look almost very similar, but there is a noticeable difference. And number one is the bypass cameras that it has in the front. Number two is sort of this new band here on the top that's going to alleviate some pressure. And from a hardware difference, I think these are the only two things that I noticed immediately. Of course, it has the battery backpack in the back, and it has a GPS module, which means that you don't have to connect your phone to fly for remote ID purposes or have a cord with your battery pack connected, as I do with the Goggles 2. But overall, the size of them are very similar. The form factors extremely alike, with the exception of, just this band that's gonna fit on your forehead so nicely to avoid the pressure on your nose, and then also the bypass cameras, which was huge. Now, in terms of the remote, the remotes are almost identical except for the color difference, and then the FPV Remote 3 doesn't have the antennas no longer externally, they're now built in But what is noticeably different is just the weight reduction on the FPV Controller 3 versus the prior FPV controllers, whether the 1 or the 2. Now, enough talking about hardware. I want to go ahead and spend the majority of my time in today's video talking about my experience when flying the Avata 1 compared to the all-new and improved Avata 2. Yes, I'm already being sort of biased. The improved Avata 2, and that is because I genuinely feel that there is a huge improvement on the Avata 2. There's so many different factors that contribute to this drone now being the ultimate Cinewhoop drone made by DJI. So first and foremost, the Avata 1 is so loud. I mean, it is incredibly loud when hovering, when flying, when at maximum velocity. We all know this. The Avata 2 changes that completely. The Avata 2 is so quiet in the air. It sort of has like this low pitch tone, this low humming noise. It reminds me very much of the Mavic lineup, whether the Air 3, the Mavic 2 Pro, the Mavic 3. Sort of, I think the design, the difference in the props now being tri-blade versus being fan blade, and not being a pusher style drone changes that characteristics, and that's a welcome characteristics to have. You want to make sure that your drones are quieter so they're not being announced to the environment that you're flying in. That's how we kind of avoid these issues. And with Remote ID now fully active, the less interactions you have with the pilot, the more enjoyable your hobby can be. And this definitely is much quieter than the Avata 1, and to me that is huge. Number 2 is power. This Avata 2 is so agile compared to the Avata 1. The Avata 1 is still an incredible drone, don't get me wrong. Actually, let's scratch incredible. The Avata 1 is a good drone, but the Avata 2 is an incredible drone because from a power difference, you're gonna notice it immediately. I am a pilot that likes to fly in manual mode. As soon as I take off with the Avata, I really have to punch up in order to get some momentum going, to get some forward momentum. And I'm often flying at a 35 or 40 degree pitch angle in manual. With the Avata 2, you gotta be careful flying at a 35, 40 degree pitch angle, because as soon as you throttle up, this little guy is just gonna take off and you're gonna notice it. Another thing I notice is that this feels extremely floaty in the air. And floaty is a terminology that FPV pilots like to use where, you know, when you let go of the throttle, the drone is not automatically descending. It's not automatically sinking. You feel like it floats in the air. With the Avata 2, you have that feeling. With the Avata 1, you definitely never had that feeling. No matter what adjustment you did to your rates, or doesn't matter how you're flying, if it was in a windy condition, if it wasn't in a windy condition, the Avata 1 struggled with that, but the Avata 2 seems to fix that. The third biggest difference is obviously battery life. Not only is the Avata 2 much lighter than the Avata 1, you are gonna get more speed and more battery, more juice, more runtime, more airtime with your Avata 2. That was a huge noticeable difference as well as I've been flying and testing out the Avata 2. And although battery life is extremely welcome, I'm the type of person that don't really pay too much attention to battery life on these DJI drones. I think 10 minutes in that immersive experience, if you're flying in manual, is way more than what you should expect. These are a Cinewhoop at the end of the day, right? You're not gonna be doing long range FPV mountain diving with these Cinewhoops. So think about it, you know, you're always gonna be in high and intense mode as you fly through gaps, as you fly through buildings, as you fly through sort of anything where you will fly a Cinewhoop through. I think when you're flying in that environment, 10 minutes is all that you really need. But I'm happy to share that with the Avata 2, you can get very close to 30 minutes, which is just really fantastic. Why do you need more batteries than just 3? Now, number 4 is the camera. Now, although camera doesn't really impact the experience, it kind of does, because when you're flying the Avata 2, I noticed a difference in terms of quality, a difference in terms of the feed that's coming back to you. And that's probably because of my number 5, which is signal penetration. The signal that you get on the Avata 2 is amazing. That's probably contributed to, obviously, OcuSync 4, also perhaps the new FPV controller, the FPV 3. OcuSync 4 combined with new controllers, it's going to give you some amazing results, and the Avata doesn't fail there. It delivers. The Avata 2 delivers. The Avata 1 still delivers with signal quality. Again, think about my earlier comments. This is a Cine whoop. You're not going to be doing long range diving. I hope you're not going to be doing range tests with these Avatas, with these Cine whoops, because it's not meant for that. However, when you are going behind a building, when you are going behind obstacles, you can welcome that new signal penetration, that new signal strength, and the Avata 2 definitely delivers in that class. And finally, I do want to talk about the goggles. The goggles are an incredible welcome, an incredible change to my flying experience. I was impressed with the Avata 2, but I am more impressed with the Goggles 3. It has these cameras here for pass-through, which is so good if you're flying alone, if you don't want to flip up your goggles, if you don't want to pause your drone, you can now see through the goggles. Now, there is one caveat here where you have to double tap, but I think I can set that up as a shortcut on my remote. I haven't investigated that yet, but we'll come back to you on that. But the fact that now I feel comfortable flying by myself because I can put on my goggles and then I can just double tap here and I can have a live view of my environment and what is actually happening, that puts me at ease. That's really going to contribute to my overall flight experience, as I mentioned, with the Avata 2. You know, what are the things that improve my experience when I think about the Avata 1 and the Avata 2? The pass-through camera, especially when flying alone and you want to have awareness, situational awareness as to what's happening around you, you can achieve that. Now, unfortunately, I think this is only something that's going to work with the Avata and or future FPV drones from DJI. Definitely not going to work for my traditional FPV guys that are flying with air units. But still, we're talking about the Avata 2 here, and that is a huge welcomed change. And now, this band up here up front, this band sits on my forehead so well, so nicely. I don't have any pressure on my nose, and I don't have any light leaks because the foams here have completely eliminated all light leaks. So now I can be fully immersed on my flying experience. And when you think about the hardware changes, when you think about the changes and the improvements to the actual drone, overall, I think it is a well worth upgrade from the Avata 1. If you take your FPV flying really serious and you want to get something better and level up, and you love this sort of flying, you gotta love flying a Cine whoop, because you can't compare this to a 5-inch, a 7-inch, a toothpick, etc. If you love flying Cine whoops, you love flying through gap, you love that cinematic take, well, now you have it all. You have the best goggles, world-class goggles, and you got one of the best cameras that I've seen on an FPV drone without having to carry a GoPro on top. So there you go, guys. That is my overall impressions when you think about the Avata 1 upgrading from the Avata 1 to the Avata 2. This is by far a very pleasing experience, and I highly recommend it. Not pushing products. I sound like a salesman. That's why I kind of stop and pause here, because I'm not really trying to sell you anything. I'm really talking to you about my experience flying the Avata. So let me know what questions, what feedback you have, any more additional videos you want to see from me, and I'll be sure to answer them all. Until next time, peace.